All right. Welcome to Switch's Q&A series. We are here today with Harry Levine, a graduate of Bloc. He went through the 12-week full stack program. How are you doing today, Harry?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I wanted to ask you, before attending Bloc, what did you do before, and where are you from? Um,
Sure. So I grew up here in Denver, Colorado. I was I studied science actually in college. I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, and lived in Italy for a little while and taught English after college, and then got into finance for a few years. I was a loan officer and a loan originator, and then I got into education. And I was in education for about 15 years. I was a high school teacher, and then I got into adult education. I was a corporate trainer, and then a training manager at a software company, and then most recently the director of training for a software company.
wow, great. What made you decide to switch into programming and decide on taking Bloc specifically, which is an online boot camp, which we haven't featured yet?
So at the last two software companies that I worked at, I've always been interested in technology, and at the last two software companies that I worked at in the training department, started to become friends with some of the developers, and after they got to know me, they started saying, Harry, this is something I think you'd really enjoy, and so I started to look into it, and they were right. And so a couple years ago, I started teaching myself, going online, and a lot of traditional track for people that are changing careers to like a Code Academy and a lynda.com and those types of online resources, and I started teaching myself, and then that only gets you to a certain point. They are fantastic tools for really getting people off the ground to understand what coding is about and to start learning the language. But then you're going to, if you really want to pursue it, I felt I really needed to then look into something a little bit more formal, so I could go deeper and broader into it. And the traditional track for learning that we all are raised from is that, well, if you need to learn something, you go back to school. And so, really higher education. And so the first thing that I did was I started looking into colleges locally here in Colorado, and applied for a master's program at a local college here in Denver. I was accepted into the web development and design program, and attended that college for about a quarter, and realized very quickly that there's somewhat of a stereotype that I had heard about colleges and higher education not really being in step with this profession, and I experienced that firsthand.
Wow.
The syllabus was many years old, and the professor really wasn't concerned about that whatsoever, changing the dates or the textbook or any of the content. Mind you, this was not computer science. This was a web development design degree. And so I dropped out of that program and started looking for an alternative for a working adult. I have a family, a wife, and two young daughters. And so I started looking for an alternative where I could, balance still having a full-time job as the director of the software company, the director of training for the software company, but then also learn. And just did a lot of research online, and I came across this fantastic opportunity Bloc, and started to look into it, and it looked like something I was going to really be able to balance what I wanted to accomplish, but then still, put food on the table for my family and kind of do what I wanted to do. So
That's great. So I'm wondering, when you looked at the syllabus at the college, did you know that it was outdated because of the work that you had done in Code Academy and lynda.com?
It was that a little bit, but more so, literally, it was 2009. The syllabus was dated 2009, and this was 2014 that I was attending the college.
Wow.
And the book was from, right around that time too, and it was a lot of paper writing and theory. And I understand that's was not, of course, computer science. Again, I was a molecular biology and kinesiology major, so I had nothing to do with this growing up. But it just wasn't learning language, and I needed to. If I was going to get a job in this profession, I need to learn the language. I need more practical, applicable skills. I needed to start building things hands-on, web applications. I needed to start learning the languages and getting involved in building things. So that was it. It was very quick to understand that this was not going to, and it was going to be a very long program and costly.
Yeah.
So so yeah.
Yeah, I bet. So most people might not know Bloc has a one-to-one mentorship program. Other than that mentorship program, what do you think sets Bloc apart from Linda and Code Academy?
Well, I see a Linda and a Code Academy as supplemental resources for a Bloc, for a boot camp. And that's exactly how I use them. Bloc takes you down the path of what you need to know in order to be successful in this industry. It starts at the ground level and really starts to teach you about taking a web application from the ground up and building it, and not just following the one track. And so when we talk about web application and Ruby on Rails, well, it's not just Ruby on Rails. It's Ruby on Rails. It's Ruby. It's HTML. It's CSS. It's database work. It's potentially, it's hosting. It's deploying. It's GitHub. It's Heroku. It's so many other things. So typically in a lynda.com and CSS, you'll focus on one small piece, one track, which you need to, and it will teach you that, and it'll be a very narrow focus. Whereas Bloc integrates all of these disparate resources together, because that's exactly what you're going to experience in the job, in the position, is you're going to be using all of these tools interchangeably all the time at any given moment, balancing and learning, and not just those. That's just a small set of what you actually learn and need to know. And so Bloc really intertwines those and integrates those smartly, brings them together in a real kind of logical manner moving forward, so that you can digest them and learn them as you learn kinesthetically, meaning hands-on, and actually get to build one web application and then move into the projects where you start building multiple web applications.
Nice. What kind of advice would you give to a potential student like yourself who's balancing work and family as well as taking Bloc?
Yeah. So I think one of the important things for me for Bloc and advice, I think Bloc is a program that is set by a finite amount of time. It's a 12-week program or an 18-week program or a 36-week program. And so once the clock starts, it starts. And the clock is ticking. Now they offer some alternatives if something happens, like a freeze, which is really cool. But nonetheless, I mean, in general, once the clock starts. So my recommendation, looking back, is to do as much as you can prior to Bloc, so you can get the most out of the experience. And so specifically, going back to those supplemental resources, I would recommend doing as many Ruby classes, as many Rails classes. Definitely you should definitely grasp it on some HTML and CSS to be sure. But really, the Ruby, I can't stress enough, as much Ruby if you can do through like Code School, fantastic, Infinite Skills, lynda.com, rubylearning.org. Any kind of, I think the Ruby was really, really important, and doing as much of that before you start Bloc. So Bloc is what you need, but to really get the most traction out of every moment in time in Bloc, the more you can accomplish beforehand, the more you're going to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's the most important thing, is to, if you know you want to start in Bloc, and you're really excited about it, and Bloc is so fantastic that they let you start pretty much whenever you want. You can start like on any Monday. That's another fantastic thing about this. You don't have to wait till like a quarter out or a half year out and apply, and life is moving, so you want to get started. But then there's that double-edged sword, because you're tempted to then just get started to jump into it. And I was guilty of that too. And in retrospect, I really wish I would have done more upfront deeper Ruby learning and Rails learning and some of those other kind of ancillary languages that are going to go along with this, because I think that would have really paid off the most for the experience.
Nice. What was like your favorite project that you worked on during your program?
Yeah, so my capstone project was a project called Mind on Rails. So in Bloc, they allow you to, at the end, you come up with your own idea of a web application you want to build from scratch. You design it, you come up with the requirements, the user stories. You start off with a completely blank slate, and then you build out this web application. And you, with your mentor, you discuss this idea to make sure it's manageable and legitimate and something you can actually accomplish in the amount of time you have available to you. And then you build it, and they're there to support you and kind of catch you if you need some help and give you tips, etc. And so mine was Mind on Rails. And so Mind on Rails is it's a knowledge exchange note-taking tool for people that are learning Ruby on Rails. One of the things that I noticed very quickly about this profession and industry is that you are never, ever going to remember everything you learn. You're never, ever going to, and you shouldn't even think that you're going to. That's a fool's errand right away to think you're just going to have this rote memorization of everything. What you need to have is you need to be able to have kind of fingertip access to the information when you need it. So you want to have these resources available as kind of like an external brain, smart ways to look up things, smart ways to research things, answers stored in these very highly accessible areas so you can get to them when you need them. And so I found myself learning through this process over the last 2 years so much information, and I write it down, but I'd write some down over here, and I'd write some down over here, and I have some in this email, and I have some in Evernote, and some in OneNote, and some in, in so many places, and sticky notes. And so what Mind on Rails is, it's one central hub to capture all these important integral pieces of information that I wanted to have accessible for me moving forward, and then also a mechanism to share them with others that are going through the same experience. So it's kind of it's a note-taking, knowledge exchange tool specifically for this niche of people that are going through Ruby on Rails. And so, so I created that web application while at Bloc, and it was awesome. I mean, I couldn't believe that my sketches and my wireframes actually came out to fruition, and I actually built this thing. I couldn't believe what I learned in my time there, and my mentor was just amazing. I had a fantastic, great mentor. His name is Elliot Sykes. He was so supportive. He was so in tune with what I needed to do. He was so kind to always give time. Anytime we needed to spend more time, that's fine. 20 minutes, 50 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. I know we haven't talked about it yet, but I think like definitely one of the biggest pieces about Bloc is the mentorship. The mentorship, I don't know if we want to talk about that a little bit more, but that was definitely the biggest, most integral component for me being successful in transitioning careers was Elliot, was the mentor.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. How does it work? You have the same mentor the entire 12-week program, and are you able to call him during certain like office hours? We'd love more information about that.
Yeah. So the way the mentor works is there are a number of mentors that work for Bloc, and they kind of post their information on the Bloc site. And so you choose a mentor that you think is going to really line up with what you want to accomplish and something that you see some kind of kinship with based by reading their profile and also their availability. Depending on the length of the course, if you're doing the 12-week program or 18-week or 36-week, that dictates how many times you will meet per week. If you're doing the 12-week program, when I was going through it, then you would meet 3 times a week. If you're doing the 18-week program, you'd meet 2 times a week. If you're doing the 36, it was 1 time a week. But initially, you would kind of go online when you're signing up, and you would look at the available mentors, and you read through, and you choose one. And then, you would stick with that mentor the whole time if you choose to. If something happened and you wanted to switch, you could switch. But otherwise, you would work with that mentor. And you would meet. So I would meet 3 times a week. We had a set schedule. We were meeting the same times, and we would also in between those meetings, I could shoot him emails. And he was really quick to respond to emails. And then I would just make sure that during our meetings, and then the one fantastic thing about Elliot is he really let me drive the meeting. So as you're working through and learning things, there are potential blockers that are, if you're trying to accomplish a certain checkpoint and I want to learn something and I get to somewhere, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to solve this, and you go online and try to figure it out, and you just can't. And so these blockers that could impede your progress. And so the mentors are there definitely to help you get unstuck and to provide color and deeper understanding around the topics and how they would tackle that particular situation, things they might have done, and they share their thought process. And that was something that Elliot did really well. He would share how he would approach it, how he would think about it. We pair program and also be at Skype simultaneously, so that was really important. So not only could he see my screen in real time, but then we'd also see each other. So communicating non-verbally is a huge component for understanding, do I get it just by seeing my facial expression? Are you understanding what I'm saying at all? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? And so, that was fantastic. So yeah, we would talk in real time, and he'd see my screen in real time, and so I would kind of save up some things so we'd have a really concentrated special accomplishment period when we'd have our Monday, Wednesday, Friday meetings, and I would drive them. So it was all about what I needed to talk about, how he could help me. It wasn't like he showed up with an agenda. He would have if I asked him, and it's whatever you work out with your mentor, however you want your time to be. But for me, it was really important that I wanted you to help me with what I needed to work on then, and it was all about helping me learn something that was important to me in real time so I could move forward. And Elliot was just fantastic at doing that. Elliot and I still talk. After Bloc ended, he and I still talk and meet, and he helped me actually as I progressed post-Bloc into applying for jobs and getting ready for interviews and projects that I've been building. And so, yeah, I just can't say enough good things about him and really the mentorship experience. I think from when I was researching Bloc, the same things were echoed by many other alumni of Bloc. The same things, how important the mentorship program was for them. So, yeah.
And what stood out to you in Elliot's background when you were researching mentors? You were like, this person, I'm going to go with Elliot.
Yeah. So a couple things that clicked with me was, one was that he had walked the walk. So in his profile, it described some things, but then also it linked out to his work. So it wasn't like him just explaining what his process is, how he approaches things, what he thinks about, who he is, and his experience. But then also I could go out and see web applications that he has built. I've seen some of the places he worked. Actually, he did a really cool, one of his websites, I think it's Web Dev Break or something like that, but he had posted online tutorials helping people learn different topics in web development. So I was able to actually get these little snippets of what my experience would be with him learning as him as a teacher, as a mentor. And so I was able to hear him talk, and so it just really clicked. His pace and the way he explained concepts really clicked with me, and so yeah.
Nice. So I heard that you got a new job. Congratulations. Can you tell us what you are doing now?
Yeah. I am a Ruby on Rails full-stack web developer for a web application company here in Denver, Colorado called FirePoint.
Okay.
New company, been around for a couple years, and on a small web development team, and doing exactly this. I'm building it's a Ruby on Rails web application. It's the scope changes so radically from the projects that you work at as you're practicing and you get in the real world, and it's just been fantastic. I'm applying everything that I learned, but now just this much larger, broader scope, and taking a lot of the best practices that I kind of pooled along the way, and applying those, getting mentorship from other developers at the company. And I'm just loving it. I'm just really satisfied with the work. One of the things that I find so satisfying. So this was for me. It was really a doctor becoming a lawyer. I mean, I was in education I was a teacher, I was a trainer, and etc. Now, being a web developer, and one of the things, and depending on your job, there's different things that kind of fill you up, that fill your tank for what keeps you going, and something that I get from this job that I really love is completing stories. So you'll have these tasks. You'll constantly have these little projects called stories that you work on, and there's a number of them in a given sprint, and then you'll grab one and you'll start working on it, and then when you're done, you'll drag it over and you completed it, and it's just this accrual of all these things that you're building, and you can see the work that you're doing, and you can really show accomplishment, and you can see how much you've progressed and the rate at which you're progressing, and it's really satisfying. It's surprisingly satisfying. I didn't think that would be the case, but it really is. Just getting like these, because it's constantly like solving problems, and people do that as a cliche, but I mean this is really solving little problems over and over, and there's many different ways to approach them, and use your creativity to solve them, and then solve another problem. Take one down, solve another problem. It's a really rewarding, satisfying profession. I'm really enjoying it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a big gamer, so like working in technology, you can really you can know where you're going. You've like completed a problem. You can see the progress, and it is really satisfying. Unlike, I guess, teaching might be a little bit different, because you don't really know if the student has really grasped the concept, and the student isn't going to be like, yes, I understand 85%.
Yeah, it's different. And it's exactly like you said, different things that fill you up. In teaching, you get that experience of helping others, and when you truly connect with somebody and you can see them move forward, that's a way you get that fills me up too. But I didn't know what it was going to be like in this career. And that's something that I just immediately latched onto, and I'm really enjoying.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess my last question, like, what do you think you want to do in 5 years? Is this the same thing, I guess? Or do you have any other, like, new projects in the works?
Well, I want to make sure that I'm working at a company where I enjoy the people that I'm with. I want to be doing something that's still challenging me. I know something that, like, as a goal, and I don't know if it's necessarily 5 years or the time frame, but I want to learn more. I think that's another thing that really attracted me to this profession. I'm a lifelong learner. I love the idea you are constantly learning, and that's not. I'm not just saying that. I mean, you are constantly learning in this profession. That's a positive for me. But the people that I work with have been doing it for 15 years. They're constantly learning. I see these people that I work with think, oh, I just learned that. I just learned that. And my mentor, Elliot, I just learned, and so that's something that's really positive for me. And so I want to learn more. I want to learn more about JavaScript. I want to learn about Node.js. I want to learn more about Backbone. I want to learn more about SQL. I mean, I want to. So, where am I in 5 years from now? I'm hoping that I have learned even more languages, and my skill set is even broader, and I'm able to actually then take more of the creativity and the ideas that I have in my mind, and on my own accord go out and apply those, and which is going to afford me the opportunity to really do whatever I want, because it's such a popular profession right now. It's so hot that you can really I can work from home. I can work in 10 minutes from home. I could work downtown. I could work in Italy. You work remotely. I can do whatever I want, and so it gives me a lot of flexibility with my family. You can work any hours that you want. The compensation is fantastic. And so in 5 years from now, I hope to be still really enjoying it and learning all these things that I'd hoped that I learned. But then, just being able to really have that good balance with my family and with the career. And I think that's something that I'm going to be able to get here, because if you're not happy in somewhere, you're able to really just bounce and go work somewhere else, because you've established yourself as such a mindful and accomplished individual. You can learn so much in such a short period of time. So in 5 years, I can only imagine how much I will have learned. And so I'm going to be able to really take advantage of that and make sure that I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I see that being the case.
Nice. Would you consider taking another Bloc program?
I would. definitely, I've thought about having access. I still actually reference the materials. One of the cool things about Bloc is they allow you, they give you lifelong access to the track that you were in. And so I was in a couple of tracks. I was in the full stack web development track, and then I was also in the job prep track afterwards.
Okay.
And I have, and then they continue to hone and improve and shape those materials. So I've gone back a few times, many more than a few times actually, logged back in, and I've seen modifications and changes they've made, improvements, so that they stay in step, so they don't become that 2009 old syllabus kind of experience. So that's really cool. So I go back and look at the materials, and I've definitely thought, like, if I'm going to get into mobile application development, for example, or if I wanted to get into any more front-end stuff, that Bloc would be a fantastic way to balance, especially now that I know as much as I know. I can learn any more developing-related topics so much faster. So I feel that I'd be able to go back now and move through a course and absorb material in a much more efficient manner. So I definitely could see myself actually going back and taking some more material at some point in the future.
That's great. And it's so easy because you can start on any Monday. So
That's right. That's right.
Well, that's all I have in terms of my questions. Thank you so much for joining me today, Harry.
Thank
Really
you so
appreciate it.
much. Thanks for having me. It was great.